All right, you guys. We are redoing the recording of the coffee and calorie seminar for you guys because in the excitement of the event last week, we actually forgot to hit record on the first half. So the recording is going to be two videos. This first half of the video is what I'm doing right now. And the second half is going to be when we actually hit record. That's going to be the day of the seminar. That'll be Anthony talking through his half. All right. So Coffee and Calories was a nutrition seminar that was done at Pivot in Boise, Idaho last week, Sunday, January 7th. It is brought to you by Muscle Camps. Anthony and I are the coaches of Muscle Camps. What is Muscle Camps, you might ask? We'll show you.
Yo, you want to see something cool? No? Well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Step into the scene! No, nobody can do it like me! Zoom house plate with the kick cuisine!
There we go. Good
Yo, you want to see something cool? No?
Awesome. We only want to see it once. There we go. But Muscle Camps is the greatest strength training program you have ever heard of in your entire life. It is based out of Boise, Idaho. It pairs in-person classes 3 times per week with a training app with events just like this nutrition seminar that we did to create community, to hold people accountable, and to get people stronger and in the best shape of their life. And it works. The event last week was sponsored by our amazing neighbors, Big City Coffee. They supplied a whole bunch of delicious coffee for everyone there to enjoy. If you are watching this and you live in Boise, Idaho, go check out Big City. You will not regret it. The agenda, right? So half of this already happened, right? So I'm going to, in this video, go over the first half. In the subsequent video, Anthony is going to be going over the second half, where it's a little bit more applicable, right, to your day-to-day life. My half is a little bit more numbers, a little bit more math, right? A little bit more sciencey, right? Kind of the reasons why, where his half is a little bit more how to apply the science and the stuff that I talk about to your day-to-day life. So I will first start off with talking about who Anthony and I are, why you should care, why you should listen to us in regards to nutrition. So establishing some credibility early on. We'll talk about which diets work and why. We'll talk about how many calories you should be eating, how to calculate that based on your goal, how that might change over time. We'll talk about macros and how to break your calories down into the 3 macros: protein, fats, and carbs, how to calculate those for your goals. We'll talk about some foods to hit those macros, and then that's where this video will end. The second video, Anthony will talk about keys to your success, strategies when traveling and on the go, and we answered about 10 to 15 minutes worth of Q&A, which is all included on that video as well. Okay, so some credibility establishing. This is me. And first off, I am not a registered dietitian. I am not a nutritionist, right? You're like, bad start. Why am I listening to this guy? The main reason is because I've got a lot of experience, right? I have been in the fitness industry, working in it for some capacity for the last 8 years. For, I'd say, most of that, 5 years or so, I actually coached other coaches how to be better coaches, right? Both personal trainers, Group X instructors, nutrition coaches. I managed gyms, so I would hire coaches, kind of train them up and give them kind of the tools to be successful. I have a bunch of education, right? I've got 20 plus fitness certifications in a whole host of different areas and 3 different college degrees. I spent way too much time in college. Anthony, he is an overall awesome human. He has a degree. He is certified. He is a competitive bodybuilder, and he has about 6 years of experience. Fun fact, I actually gave Anthony his first job way back in the day. So even way back then, I could recognize how awesome he was. More importantly than all that, though, the stuff we're going to talk about today actually produces results. So these are some screenshots of some of our client transformations. There is no Photoshop. There are no filters. There are no edits. This is the real deal. And basically what this presentation is taking all of the practices that worked for these individuals, packaging them all up into one presentation with the slides, with the nutrition guides, and then we're just trying to give that out, right? We are big believers in trying to get people in shape and get them in shape one time, right? So they can stay in shape. So you've already seen all that proof. Those are muscle campers and or nutrition clients that got in shape using these practices. And also we use these practices, right? So this is Anthony a couple years ago at his first bodybuilding show, shredded to the bone. And that is me flexing in the mirror, because once you get abs, you can't stop flexing in the mirror. It's just how it goes, right? But all jokes aside, this is to show you that we actually use these practices that we're going to talk about to get both ourselves in shape and change our body composition based on our goals at the time. And we use it for real life humans as well. With that credibility established, hopefully you're now bought in and ready to learn. So let's dive in. Okay, nutrition is super confusing, right? If you are in the land of social media trying to learn about nutrition, I feel for you, right? Because you will have two equally what appears to be credible influencers, right? Telling you to do two entirely different things, right? Someone will be touting carnivore, saying that is the way, while someone else who is just as big as following, just as convincing, seemingly just as smart, is telling you to go vegan, right? It is super confusing for the layperson to know where the heck to go. Like, I'm just trying to take the first step. How do I do this, right? And it can be a challenge, right? So we aim to clear that up for you. The truth is, all diets work. So everybody on social media is a little bit right, which makes it even more challenging, right? It is about finding the diet that you can best stick to, right? That you can be consistent with. So in this presentation, we are not going to recommend any type of diet. We are not going to alienate any type of diet, right? There are no perfect diets, right? There is only perfect diets for you and the diet that you can stick to perfectly, right? So we are going to give you some principles and tenets that you can apply to any diet that you would like to follow at this given time period in your life, and realize that that may change over time as well. So just because a diet works for you now doesn't mean it will work for you forever, right? So you can take these principles and apply them to whatever diet you're practicing at the time. Again, it's most important that you are consistent. Hence the next slide. Compliance is the science, right? Research shows, our evidence with our clients has shown, right, that the type of diet is not important. You can lose weight following any diet you would like to, right? The best diet to lose weight and keep it off is the one that you can stick to over and over and over and over again, right? We are looking for daily adherence, or really darn close to daily adherence, right? We are adopting lifestyles, right? So we are talking about lifestyle changes, right? Lifestyle nutritional changes, not short-term quick fix 4, 6, or 8 week diets. Just because most people have no problem losing the weight, they have problem that they gain it all back, right? So we are trying to discuss strategies that you can apply to the diet so you can lose weight once and keep it off. Before I get into how to structure your diet, kind of those principles that I was talking about, I'm going to go over why diets fail, right? There's 3 primary reasons that diets fail. That is because people are either too hungry, they don't have a plan, or they are too tired. So we're going to dive deeper into each of these. So first, being too hungry, right? You're too hungry at the end of the night, so the cupboard is just screaming at you. So you're going in there, snacking, eating cookies, whatever it is to throw you off plan and put you over calories that day, right? So strategies to avoid it, right? Sleep more, sleep better, sleep more, right? That is vastly underrated when it comes to fat loss and weight loss, right? Sleep When you are short on it, it spikes a hormone, a hunger hormone in your body called ghrelin, right? When ghrelin is high, that triggers your body to want more food, right? So the more sleep you get, the lower ghrelin will be, right? And the less likely you are to overeat and have cravings. In addition to that, we'll talk a ton about increasing your protein, fruits, veggies, and water, right? The reason all of that works is because those are low energy dense foods, right? They do not have a ton of calories in them. When you choose the correct ones, they don't have a ton of calories in them, and they keep you full, right? So staying full with low calorie, generally a good recipe for dropping body fat. You also want to run a smaller calorie deficit, right? We've all know someone who, or maybe we've done it ourselves, who slashed their calories. They got really motivated. So they cut their calories really steeply. They lost a bunch of weight over the first 7 days. Then day 8 came and they were just too darn hungry. So they overate and they gained it all back. They felt discouraged and they gave up. So a smaller calorie deficit is generally the way to go unless you have a very extreme short-term goal. So that is our recommendation there. No planning or poor planning. This is a huge one. This is something that I run into with my nutrition clients all the time. People don't have a plan. People are winging it 24/7 when it comes to food, right? I say that they have a reactive relationship with food, right? They say, oh, I'm hungry. It's lunchtime. I've got 10 minutes. What's around? What can I eat, right? It is really hard to be successful doing that. You want to plan ahead. On top of that, you don't want to ever assume that there is going to be an easy week. There is no such thing as an easy week in real life, right? Most often the case, at least. Life is really good at throwing curveballs at us. You might be asked to stay late for an extra meeting at work. There might be a new additional deadline at work thrown at you last second. Car troubles that are unexpected, something happened with your kid or some other family member that threw you off plan, right? But in short, there is always hurdles that throw us off plan. So it is best to plan for the worst case scenario and be prepared, right? So when that scenario happens, you can just go seamlessly right into plan A, B, or C, right? And execute. A big part of plan A, B, or C for us and what we promote, what we do ourselves, and what we see our successful clients do is meal prepping and or batch cooking. Anthony talked a lot about this in his half of the presentation, so you'll be able to learn more about that in the second video. Something that I will add on top of that is if you don't want to meal prep, if you don't want to batch cook for whatever reason, say you're just not someone who likes to cook very often, then you need to purchase things and have them on standby that don't require any cooking, that are low calorie and high in fiber and high in protein, such as Greek yogurt cups, such as canned fruits, canned vegetables, things like that, stuff that you can just crack open and down with little to no prep time. You'll also want to track your progress. We are big proponents in a daily weigh-in, right? Our clients use the Pivot Academy app, which is the training app that our program Muscle Camps is on. The reason you want it to track your progress, right, is because it is a upfront, black and white, objective measure of how you are doing. And this is something that a lot of new clients really struggle with early on, right? People are afraid of the scale. They're afraid of progress photos. They make them uncomfortable, right? Because it doesn't feel good to see a high number on the scale. It doesn't feel good to take a picture, look at yourself, and not be happy with what you see, right? But this whole process is about getting uncomfortable and being okay getting uncomfortable, right? Kind of pushing through that. That's the only way you're going to lose weight, get in shape, and stay in shape. So weigh-ins and progress photos are a part of that. The reason you want that data, right, is if your weight is slowly ticking up when you're trying to lose weight, that is a direct objective measurement, smack in the face, right, that telling you that, hey, what you're doing and the behaviors you're doing is not serving you right now, and you need to alter that behavior. So it serves a little daily reality check, right? So it's important to take that data, analyze that data, but also try and detach emotionally from it as best you can. I know that is way easier said than done, but that is what our most consistent clients do. In addition, other forms of accountability could be a coach, a workout buddy. I'm a huge fan of getting a workout buddy, or your partner, right? Having someone that you are close to that is going to hold you accountable, that is going to be a cheerleader for you. Say, hey, you are killing it. Keep going, right? And just as important, right? They're going to be honest with you, right? Honest in a caring way, saying, hey, Julie, if your name is Julie, whatever your name is, I believe in you, right? But you are slacking on the things that you said you wanted to do, right? You said you wanted to eat right. You said you wanted to exercise, but you are not doing those things consistently anymore. Let's get back on it, right? Someone who can say that in a caring and loving way is super important, because we are our biggest critics, and we are also it's easiest to let yourself down. It is harder to let someone else down. Tired. Okay. Tired is another big reason why people struggle to stick to their diets, right? And I think of this more so as mental fatigue than I do as physical fatigue, although physical fatigue is a reason as well, right? But I think of mental fatigue as in stress. That's often what I hear from people, from my clients, when they struggle to stick to their diet plan, that they're just too stressed out. I was too stressed, so I couldn't meal prep. I couldn't eat the food that I had, and I just had to go and basically relieve that stress by going getting fast food, going having a couple beers, whatever it was, right? So high stress or being too fatigued mentally and or physically leads people to go off track. So again, another way to combat that is to sleep more, right? Sleep is the secret fat loss weapon that everybody likes to ignore, right? Sleep is also when our body processes emotions, right? So if you are sleeping longer, sleeping better, you are going to reduce your stress, right? A lack of sleep in itself is a stressor. You're also going to want to run a smaller calorie deficit. Food is fuel, right? So if you have a steep calorie deficit, you're going to be tired because you don't have the energy, right? You're not putting gas in the gas tank, so to speak, right? So you are going to be tired. You're going to be low energy. So running a more modest calorie deficit, not completely slashing your calories, going on a crash diet, is going to go a long way towards helping you stick to the diet. And you're going to want to increase your whole food intake, because that's going to have you feeling good, right? You're going to have better energy because of that. So 6 out of 7 people lose weight, right? The problem is 95% of people gain it back at some point in time, right? So that tells you right there that people can lose weight, but they do so in unsustainable practices. So our goal with this presentation is to give you a sustainable plan that you can take going forward. If all diets work the same, why? Because calories in, calories out, right? On social media, online, you're going to hear all sorts of other reasons. You're going to hear things like hormones. You're going to hear things like insulin. You're going to hear things like, I'm blanking on others, right? Nutrient deficiencies, anything, right? We are not saying that those things aren't important. They absolutely are. They absolutely play a role, right? But they are not the baseline issue, right? If you are heavier than you would like to be, if your body composition is not where you'd like it to be, it is a calories in versus calories out issue. You are eating too many calories or drinking too many calories, right? And not burning enough on a regular basis. So you just need to tilt that scale in the opposite direction, tilt that scale in your favor. We're going to give you tools to do that. All diets do the same thing. They reduce calories. We're going to show you how. So why all diets work the same. So here we have a few pie graphs, right? So these pie graphs, they represent your diet as they currently is. So the yellow is the fat, the blue is the protein, the red is the carbs. If you go on a keto diet, you cut your calories by roughly a third because you're cutting the carbs. Conversely, you take your normal diet, you decide to go on a low-fat diet, you cut out the fat, right? Or you reduce the fat. You never want to completely cut out the fat. But you reduce the fat in your diet, right? Again, you've reduced your calories by roughly the third. If you go the portion control method, right, whether that's tracking macros or some other form of portion control, you're essentially just shrinking the pie, right? So shrinking your number of calories by roughly a third. Or if you practice something like intermittent fasting, so instead of a normal diet, these pie graphs now represent a normal meal for you, right? You go from eating 3 meals a day to eating 2 meals a day. So again, you're reducing your calories by roughly a third. Conversely, if you've tried a diet or you know someone who's tried a diet and they said it didn't work for them, here's why, right? This is using the keto example. Remember, the red section here is carbs, right? So if we drop off carbs, right, it should create that calorie deficit. But if we go keto, right, we start adding butter to our coffees, right? Lots and lots of butter. We start adding bacon to all of our meals. We start having ribeyes for our protein sources, right? We are essentially increasing the calories too much from the fats and the protein that it's overcoming the deficit in carbs, right? So that's why they didn't work for you. This could be either a short-term, measured on a short-term thing, or it could be a long-term thing, right? Where you just stop sticking to the keto diet. That's something that I hear from clients all the time is, hey, I started the keto diet, I lost some weight, right? But it's just hard to stick to not eating carbs ever, right? So eventually this half of the circle got added back in. So if all diets work and all diets work for the same exact reason, calories in, calories out, it's about 1, what is practical enough you can stick to, 2, what do you enjoy enough to continue doing, and 3, how many calories do you need? So how to calculate your calories. We are going to use in all of these examples here, we're going to use a 150-pound person, and we're going to call her Mildred, right? Mildred does not exist. This is not one of our clients. This is just a fake person that we're going to use because her weight, 150 pounds, makes the math easy, right? So if you want, if Mildred wanted to lose weight very quickly, right? She wanted to undergo extreme weight loss, right? The name extreme was chosen on purpose because it is usually not a sustainable method for people, right? But sometimes it is valid and it is used, right? Say you have a photo shoot that you want to get really lean for very quickly, right? You got 4 to 6 weeks to lose a bunch of weight. You're going to use these multipliers, right? You're going to use this strategy. Anthony, in his bodybuilding show, right? The last 4 to 8 weeks leading up to that show, he was following calories that kind of fall into these ranges here, right? So essentially what you're going to do with all of these strategies, right, with all of these different levels of weight loss and or weight gain, is you're going to take your body weight and multiply it by a number, right? So Mildred is taking her 150-pound self and multiplying it by 7, 8, or 9 to give herself a certain number of calories per day. So if she multiplies by 7, it's about 1,000 calories. She multiplies by 9, it's about 1,300 calories, right? So that is going to be her calorie range to choose to lose weight quickly, lose weight extremely quickly, right? If she instead wanted to lose weight at a more modest pace, and remember a couple slides back when we're talking about why diets fail, because the calorie deficit was too steep, right? So this is generally a more sustainable approach for people here. So this is, if you're looking to lose weight, more than likely you want to use this slide. You're going to take your body weight, you're going to multiply it by 10 to 12. And whatever calories per day that calculates for you, that's going to be the appropriate calories per day that you're going to want to stick with. So for Mildred, that ends up being 15 to 1800 calories per day. We highlighted the 1500 calories per day because that is going to be what we use in all of the further examples when we talk about calculating macros. There's absolutely nothing magic about any one of those numbers, right? We could have just as easily chosen 11. We could have just as easily chosen to multiply our body weight by 12, right? But we just chose 10 because it makes the math simple going forward, right? But you can choose any one of these three numbers, 10, 11, or 12, and just choose that as a starting point. That's really what we're establishing here, is a starting diet to see how it works for you. Weight maintenance, right? If Mildred wanted to maintain her weight, she's going to multiply her body weight, 150, by 13 to 15. You can see the calorie range that produces there. If she wanted to gain a little bit of weight and or increase muscle, kind of a lean gaining phase, so gaining muscle with minimal fat gain, she's going to take her body weight and multiply it by 16 to 18, and that puts her between 2400 2700 calories. If she wants to gain weight quickly, right, she's going to take her body weight and multiply it by 19 to 21. A lot of you watching this might be wondering, like, hey, why would we ever want to gain weight quickly? Most people need to lose weight, right? But oftentimes this is used for like sick individuals or people who are just coming back from being sick. If you've ever had someone that you know really struggle with cancer, right? They're bedridden for a while, really tough go with chemo. A lot of times they can end up very small, very frail at the end of that, right? You just need to put some robustness back on their body, right? So you're going to put them on a more extreme weight gain diet just to get some added size to their body again. So that might be one of the reasons that you would use a extreme weight gain. But say Mildred wanted to gain weight quickly, she is going to multiply her body weight by 19 to 21 and eat roughly 3,000 calories per day. So like we said, none of those numbers are magic, right? If you don't like your rate of change, you simply move up or down the scale. So ultimately what we're telling you is to take your body weight and pick one of those numbers and do the math and give yourself a calorie range to start with, right? As we said earlier, the best diet is the one you can stick to, right? So just like we said there, you pick your calorie number, your initial calorie number, and you stick to it. You stick to it daily, day after day after day after day, and you track your progress, your body weight, your progress photos, and see how that certain number of calories impacts your body weight and impacts your progress photos. And if you don't like the rate of change that you're seeing, you simply move up and down the scale. Adherence is the key, right? You've got to stick to it. So before changing anything, and this is a big hurdle, a big mistake that a lot of my more beginner clients make, is they're 2 weeks into it and they were about 50% adherent with the calorie range, right? As just think, if you're not following your calories Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's 3 out of the 7 days. So that's 60-ish% adherent, right? If you're 60-ish% adherent and you're not seeing the progress you want, right? Oftentimes beginners will say, oh, we got to make a change, right? And that is not the case, right? You are not even close to consistent enough. So when we say adherent, we do mean daily, right? Daily, daily, daily. I can't stress that point enough. It needs to be every day for a minimum of 3 weeks. Closer to 4 weeks is best, right? This is especially pertinent for any women watching this, right? Because what does 3 to 4 weeks look like? What does that represent? It represents a menstrual cycle, right? And with a menstrual cycle, your weight will naturally fluctuate, right? So you want to see kind of what a certain level of calories does through a full menstrual cycle before you make any changes, right? And it just takes women longer to see the scale go down because of the menstrual cycle, right? So patience is the key. You need to be adherent to it daily for 3 to 4 weeks. honest with yourself about that before you move up or down the scale and multiply your body weight by a different number to get yourself a different calorie range. Guys, because we don't have a menstrual cycle, you can do something more like 2 weeks. And if you're consistent daily for 2 weeks, right, you should have a good read on whether or not the calorie range works for you, and then can doctor it up from there. So, section summary. There are no magic diets, right? They all work through calorie control. Diets fail due to hunger, stress, fatigue, and poor planning. This means that the magic is in you, in your ability to stick to the diet that interests you the most and that is most feasible for your life as it currently stands. You got to plan ahead. You got to be determined. And finding the correct number of calories for you and whatever diet you want to follow is very simple. It is just a simple math equation that we all probably learned in second or third grade. Anybody can do it, right? So the calories, figuring out your calories is not hard. It is the sticking to it that is hard. So the next step is how to calculate your own macros. The first one that we're going to go over is protein, because it is the most important one. Put it simply, you need to multiply your body weight by 1. It is 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. If you are overweight, right? Sometimes I get my heavier clients say you're close to the 300-pound range. You're saying, oh, does that mean I need to eat 300 pounds? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What would your body be healthy at, right? Most people are healthy between kind of the 120 to 200 pound range, depending on height, right? So what would your body be healthiest at, right? Where would your BMI be appropriately calculated at, right? You want to use that weight, right? That's the number that you want to use for your protein. Going back to our 150-pound Mildred, right? That means Mildred, if she's at a healthy weight, right? She's not obese or morbidly obese, right? She is going to eat 150 grams of protein per day. Tips to hit the protein target, right? One, this is a quick rule of thumb that I like to throw out and give to my clients that makes shopping and meal prepping a whole lot easier. It is that 1 pound of raw lean meat is about 100 grams of protein. That is an estimation. So some proteins are going to be a little higher. Something like ground beef pictured here is going to be a little lower. I think it's actually like 85, 90-ish grams of protein. But for ballpark estimates, right, 1 pound of raw lean meat is about 100 grams of protein. So if Mildred was going to hit her protein and she was only going to eat meat to do so, she's going to need to eat 1.5 pounds of meat per day. I can speak from experience, right, that I've worked with a lot of women, and I have never, ever, ever had a single woman eat all of their protein just by eating meat per day. So we're going to give you some alternatives to meat here in a bit. So don't worry, but that helps with shopping, right? So say I'm supposed to eat, me being Mildred, right? I know I'm supposed to eat 1.5 pounds of meat per day. I know I can't do that, but I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to make it a goal to eat 1 pound of meat per day, right? 7 days in a week. That means I need to buy 7 pounds of raw lean meat and prepare it for that week, kind of spread it evenly across my meals. And it does not have to be all the same meat, right? It could be any mixture of meats that you would like. It could be 1/2 pound of a bunch of different meats, or it could be 1 pound of 7 different meats, however you want to do it. If we know 1 pound of meat is 100, then we can do some quick math. 1/2 pound is 50, 1/4 pound is 25. This helps when going out to restaurants, because most restaurants, they're going to serve about 1/4 to 1/2 pound of meat, 4 to 8 ounces raw. So if you are going to a restaurant and say you go to a steakhouse and they give you the 6-ounce steak, right, you can be pretty confident that, hey, that's going to be somewhere between 30 to 40 grams of protein in that meal. So throwing that out there as well. And that can help you with math in terms of like how to meal prep, right? If I'm going to eat 3 times a day and I need 50 gram and I need 150 grams of protein per day, and I'm eating 3 times per day, right? That means I need 50 grams of protein per meal, and that means I need to have a half pound of meat at each of those meals, right? So then you can ask yourself, is it feasible for me to eat a half pound of meat at lunch, right? When I'm at work, right? When you maybe only have 10, 15 minutes to eat lunch while at work. Can you scarf down a half pound of meat? That's a lot for some folks, right? If not, then you may want to opt for another alternative, such as one of the ones we'll offer here in a second. Some of those alternatives, our go-tos, right, are protein shakes, whether plant-based or whey-based, milk-based, right? Both are good options, right? Choose the one that, again, you can stick to and one that is palatable to you, one that you enjoy, so you can drink it over and over and over again, right? But I love those just because they are portable, right? And a lot of times people really struggle to get their protein in when they first make a switch to a high-protein diet. So I'm a big believer in protein powders. Use them. In addition to that, yogurts, right? Different yogurts, high protein yogurts are great examples. Something that has generally like 15 to 25 grams of protein per serving is going to be best. Cottage cheese is another great one, right? But all of this stuff is awesome because it takes no time to prep, right? Takes no time to cook, and they are portable, right? So these are great solutions oftentimes for a lot of people, and a lot of my successful use like this. High protein myths, right? I run into this all the time with beginner clients as well. Clients say, "Hey, Brad, I been really working on my protein, been listening, right? And I had a really high protein breakfast. I had some almonds." I'm like, "Sweet. Okay, it is now noon when you're telling me this. And if I'm talking to Mildred, right, if she had a serving of almonds for her breakfast, which there's nothing wrong with almonds, right? Almonds are a perfectly healthy food, but they're only about 10 grams of protein. That might even be a little bit on the high side. It might be like 8 grams of protein in a serving of almonds. Uh, and she's got 140 grams left in the rest of the day, right? So nuts, cheeses, and many vegetarian sources of protein often have more calories from fat and carbs than they do protein, right? So it's just important to realize that if you are trying to lose weight and eat high protein, right, these should not be your primary protein sources, right? That is not saying that you should never eat these, right? It is saying that you should eat these sparingly because you are getting a little bit of protein for a lot of bit of calories with these, right? So if we are trying to get our protein really high, like trying to get our body weight in protein, right? And we're also trying to keep our calories low, obviously eating stuff that tilts the scale in the opposite direction in high amounts doesn't make sense, right? So eat these sparingly. Our favorite protein sources just a short list, but you can see a whole bunch of animal products, right? We are huge proponents of animal products because they are the easiest way to get a lot of protein in with lower calories, right? So you'll see a whole bunch of different lean protein options, right? So these are going to be pretty low fat options for the most part. Some of them are more grab and go than others, right? I'm a big fan of like canned sardines, canned tuna, and like canned smoked oysters, right? I'll eat those myself a lot just because zero prep time, right? You crack the can open, you start eating it, you're good. Put a little bit of hot sauce, salt, pepper, and it is moderately decent. It's not the best, I'll admit it, right? But it gives me protein and it takes me zero effort, which is valuable at times, right? From there, you can get eggs, egg whites, the Greek and skyr yogurt we talked about, cottage cheese we talked about, different types of protein powder. All protein powder is decent options, right? All protein powders are good. It's about finding one that you can, one, keep around, so it's portable, right? And it's convenient, right? And one that obviously you enjoy, that doesn't have a bunch of extra calories, right? If it is really, really good, if you love your protein powder and it is delicious, look at the nutrition facts, right? Does it have a whole bunch of carbs with it? Does it have a whole bunch of fats with it, right? Again, just like what we were talking about with the nut butters, the nuts, the cheeses, stuff like that. If the calories are too high relative to the protein, right, that is going to be a rough one to help you lose weight with, right? You want high protein, low calorie, right? So whatever protein powder you choose, right, aim for one that is low calorie, right, has the least carbs and fats and calories per gram of protein. Quick protein math, already kind of mentioned this a little bit, but if Mildred needs to eat 150 grams of protein per day because she weighs 150 grams, she eats 3 meals a day, that means she has to have 50 grams per meal, right? That is a lot in one meal, right? And that is something that a lot of the ladies that I work with in particular really struggle to get, right? Think of a common breakfast, right? Eggs are a common breakfast item, obviously, right? One egg has 5 to 7 grams of protein, right? A lot of the women that I start working with, when they have eggs for breakfast, they have 1 to 2, right? Sometimes 3, right? So even if we go on the high end, we say 3 eggs. At most, that is 21 grams of protein, right? So if we're trying to get enough protein from eggs for one meal, right? If we're trying to get enough protein in our breakfast to cover that 50-gram benchmark, right? We're going to need to eat 6 to 9 eggs, right, to get that protein target, right? No one eats 6 to 9 eggs in one sitting, right? Or very few people do, right? So this is just to show that 50 grams of protein is a lot, right? It's a lot of food in one meal, right? Again, we kind of that half pound of meat example that I talked about earlier, right? 50 grams of protein, whether you're doing it through eggs, whether you're doing it through meat, whether you're doing it through protein powders, right? That is a lot to ingest in one meal, and a lot of people struggle to stomach it. So for best success, we recommend splitting your protein intake into 4+ meals or snacks throughout the day, right? 4 is kind of the magic number that I do. 4 is what most of my clients do. Anthony, he does more like 6 or 7 throughout the day, but being a bodybuilder, right? That's just kind of how bodybuilders eat most often. But basically all of our successful clients are eating 4 or 5 meals per day, right? Whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, 1 snack, or breakfast, lunch, dinner, 2 snacks. And they essentially have to do it that way just to be able to get the proper amount of protein in, right? Most people can't do it off of 2 or 3 meals per day. You're just going to be too full from eating that much meat or that much yogurt or that much eggs in one sitting or a few sittings. And this is why we tend not to recommend intermittent fasting to our clients, right? There is absolutely nothing inherently wrong with intermittent fasting, right? I said at the beginning of this presentation, we are not alienating any diets, right? We are not saying any diet is bad. We are saying the exact opposite. All diets can work, every single one, including intermittent fasting. But intermittent fasting only works if you can control your calories, if you control your protein, right? So if you are intermittent fasting and you are only eating 1 or 2 times per day because your eating window is so small, right? You still got to get the 150 grams of protein, right, per day, right? So that means 150 grams of one meal. That means 75 grams of 2 meals. That means 50 grams of 3 meals, right? If you can do that, great. Congratulations, intermittent fasting works for you. But if you're not someone who can do that, then intermittent fasting may not be the best tool for you to use. Section summary. So calculating protein is simple, right? You use your ideal body weight or your goal body weight. 1 pound of raw lean meat equals 100 grams of protein. There's lots of alternatives to meat, right? Use nuts, cheeses, vegetarian sources sparingly if you're trying to keep calories low. Most clients split their protein intake into 4 or more servings per day, just so they can stick to, just so they can stick to it. And just based on some of the clarifying questions I've gotten on this presentation from the people that attended it in person, right? Remember, if you are heavy, right? If you are in that 200 to 300 pound range and your body is not healthy there, you should not be that heavy, right? You are not eating that much in protein, right? You're not eating that much in protein. You are taking what your body would be healthy at and using that for your grams of protein. So a 300-pound person who's about my size, 5'7", right? They're probably more so eating I would say 120 to 160 grams of protein per day. We are not asking you to eat 300 grams of protein. Okay, how to calculate carbs and fats. For weight loss, being exact with carbs and fats is less important, right? You can let these fluctuate, and as long as your calories and your protein are the same, day after day after day after day, you will lose weight and keep it off, right? So this is an area you can be a little bit more flexible as long as the previous two things that we talked about, calories and protein, are controlled and consistent daily. So we're going to discuss 3 levels to carbs and fats. The first one is basically what I was just talking about, is ignoring them, right? You're only keeping track of your calories, you're only keeping track of your protein, and you're letting carbs and fats fluctuate. This is going to be best for people who are essentially just kind of starting, right? Just need to lose weight and kind of want a low barrier to entry kind of approach, right? So if you're only tracking calories and protein, if Mildred only wanted to do that, how would it look for her, right? She's 150 pounds. We know a 150-pound healthy person needs to eat 150 grams of protein per day. Remember way back from the other slides, we said that we wanted to use the 10x multiplier because she wants to lose weight modestly at a modest pace. So that is 1,500 calories per day. Protein has 4 calories per gram. So we take the 150 grams of protein she's eating, multiplying that by 4. That gives us 600 calories from protein per day. You do a little subtraction math, right? 1,500 calories per day minus the 600 from protein. That gives her 900 calories left over to eat whatever she wants. Sweet, sweet freedom is now what Mildred has on her hands, right? So with that 900 calories, going back with that 900 calories, she could do that in all cookies, candy bars, Twizzlers if she wants, right? We're not recommending that per se, right? But she has that option, right? So she's got a sweet tooth and she wants to get her protein. She wants to eat chicken breast and candy. She could do that, right? And she would expect to lose weight in the same manner, right? Say she wants to do a more modest approach, right? She's going to do her protein. She's getting her 150 grams of protein. She wants to take that 900. She wants to go 500 of it through healthy stuff, fruits, veggies, stuff like that, right? And then the other 400 she's going to save for her favorite dessert. She could do that, right? Say she wanted to use the 900 calories all towards alcohol. She could do that, right? Say she wanted to use the 900 calories all towards quote unquote healthy foods. She could do that just as easily. In all 4 of those examples, she would expect to lose weight at the same rate. The second level is soft macros. This is what I personally do right now. This is what a lot of my clients have done over the past year or so and have seen success with it. So what this involves, right, is you're not actually measuring calories, right? So you're not measuring calories. I want to reiterate that. You are not measuring calories with the soft macro approach. You're measuring 2 things, right? You're measuring your body weight in grams of protein, and you're measuring the raw weight or the amount of fruits and veggies per day. So this is where we're going to talk about whole foods, right? And why whole foods are important, why we recommend them so strongly. Because essentially they keep you full, right? They are low calorie, but very filling at the same time. So you're going to use your feeling of fullness with this soft macro approach, this soft macro diet, to basically limit your calories, right? You're going to be so full from getting the 800 grams of fruits and veggies and getting the body weight in grams of protein that you are simply not going to have room in your stomach for other stuff, or as much other stuff, I should say that, right? So fruits and veggies, high in fiber, right? Protein, which we already talked about getting a lot of, and fiber make you feel full. Those are the two most filling things that you can eat, right? So you'll be too full to eat a whole bunch of processed food because you're prioritizing those two things, right? You're prioritizing getting your high protein. You're prioritizing getting roughly 800 grams of fruits and veggies. You don't need to be exact, right? But you do need to be really close all the time, right? If you're prioritizing those two things, right, you're going to feel full, right? Then you're just not going to have as much room for the burger and fries as shown on the slide. So you're using your feeling of fullness to naturally control your calorie intake. So pros and cons to this approach, because there's pros and cons to every approach. The reason I like it, easy to understand, easy to implement. You can be flexible, right? The whole diet is flexible, right? We're not saying that any foods are off limits, right? So burgers, fries, off limits are on limits, right? They're not off limits. No other food is off limits. You can get the 800 grams of fruits and veggies with any mix of fruits and veggies that you like. Whole foods, all those whole foods are going to make you feel good. After you start eating a lot of whole foods, you're going to really notice how good you feel, and you'll really notice how bad you feel when you eat more processed foods, right? That's a real big eye opener for a lot of people. I went back to my old diet for a cheat meal or whatever you want to call it, right? I went back to my old diet when I went and hung out with friends, and man, I felt so crummy. I couldn't wait to get back to eating on plan again, so to speak, right? You hear that type of stuff quite a bit, right? This diet is 100% inclusive. No foods are off limits, and it emphasizes portion control over restriction, right? So those are all the pluses to it. Some of the downsides. It's not precise, right? You are not measuring calories. And early on, we said all diets work due to calorie control, right? If you're not strictly measuring your calories, you are inherently operating in gray area, right? You don't know how many calories you're intaking. You're not measuring those calories, right? You could, but typically with this approach, people are not measuring their calories. So you are unsure of what exactly you're eating, right? So it can take longer to see results, right? Because how much of a calorie deficit are you really in, right? You might think you're way down here, but you're actually here, right? Because say you're getting your protein in your 800 grams of fruits and veggies, right? But you're drinking a lot of calories, right? You drink sodas, you drink high calorie coffees, you drink alcohol, right? You drink a lot of calories, right? That's going to very quickly close the gap on how big your calorie deficit should be, right? And maybe even put you over to now you're gaining weight on this same diet, right? So because you're not strictly measuring your calories with this approach, right? It can take longer to see results. So it's just important to measure your progress over a longer time frame, right? Instead of the 3 to 4 weeks like we initially recommended, think 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. Okay. It can be uncomfortable feeling full all the time, and whole foods spoil quicker, right? So if you're someone who doesn't like to meal prep, shop, cook a lot, right, this diet might not be best for you. Next one, going to be full macro tracking, right? So now you are tracking calories, you're tracking protein, so stealing that from the first one, but you're also going to add tracking your carbs and fats, right? This is going to be best for people that I say that are bitten by the bug, right? They are a little bit more analytical in nature, right? They like budgets, that type of thing, right? And they want to see how manipulating all four of those variables, the calories, protein, carbs, fats, affects both their body composition and their performance in the gym, right? So this is typically for people that want kind of that next level in terms of progress, manipulation, things like that. So how to calculate the rest of your macros, right? We talked about calories already, right? We figured that out in the first example. We also figured out protein in that example. Now we're trying to figure out fats and carbs, okay? So fats is the next step after calories, protein. And fats is the next step because fats are important, right? Fats are an essential nutrient, right? You can never take your fats to zero for too long. You'll start to get sick. Not feel well, right? Generally, 20% is about the lowest you want to take your fats for an extended period of time, right? So using Mildred's example of 1,500 calories, we take 20%, and that equals 300 calories. Fat has 9 calories per gram, so we do 300 divided by 9, and Mildred now gets 33 grams of fat per day, right? That is not a lot of fat per day if you've ever measured fat, right? So we could, if she wanted to, right, she could take that 20% number and take it as high as 35% of her daily calories, right? And so that would obviously give her a higher total grams of fat per day, right? So just something to consider there, right? If you're someone who likes a lot of fat in their diet, right, you do not need to use this 20% number. It could be anywhere kind of 20 to 35% is typically what we recommend. So putting that together, 1,500 calories per day, 150 grams of protein, 33 grams of fat. Now we just got to figure out the carbs. Now you just do the rest of the math to figure out the carbs. So we've got 1,500 calories per day. We subtracted the 600 calories from protein from that 150 grams of protein. We subtracted 300 calories from fat from the 33 grams of fat. That leaves her with 600 grams remaining for carbs. Carbs have 4 calories per gram, so 600 divided by 4 is voila, 150 grams of carbs per day. So putting it all together for Mildred, right, following a full macro tracking plan, she would be 1,500 calories, 150 protein, 150 carb, 33 fat. This would be just her starting point, right? Again, it is important that she is consistent, right? It does no good to follow this 3 days out of 7 or 4 days out of 7, right? You need to follow this 7 out of 7 days. You need to follow any of these strategies that I've previously talked about 7 out of 7 days to have a good gauge of if it works. You need to follow it 7 out of 7 days for 3 to 4 weeks. I can't stress that enough. Without being consistent, none of these numbers mean anything. But you want to be consistent with these numbers. Mildred would want to be consistent with these numbers for 3 to 4 weeks. Track her body weight during that time, take progress photos during that time, and see if the change is what you want, right? If she doesn't like the rate of change, she would go back to step 1 of figuring out a new calorie range, right? If she wants to lose more weight, she would multiply by a lower number and then do all of this math again to figure out the new calories. Protein would be the same, but figure out the new level of carbs and fats for her, right? And she would just repeat the entire process again, do another 3 to 4 weeks of consistency, remeasure everything, reassess everything, and change if needed. So full macro pros and cons, it is educational, right? You get to learn portion sizes that are best for you of the foods that you commonly eat. That helps when eyeballing portions, right? So if you are consistently measuring your carbs, your fats, your protein, things like that, right? And you're going out to eat with friends, you're going to be able to eyeball portions much better. You can say, I eat rice a lot, right? So I know what my serving of rice looks like because I put it on a food scale hundreds, if not thousands of times, right? So I know what that serving looks like. So if I go out to a restaurant and they serve me rice, right, I can very easily look at that serving of rice and say, that is double the amount of rice that I get. That is triple the amount of rice that I get, or that is half the amount of rice that I get. And I can make better, more informed decisions from there. It is another pro to macro tracking. It is precise when done properly. So that's going to lead to faster results, right? What gets measured gets managed, right? You're measuring a lot of things with tracking macros, right? So it is reasonable to expect faster rates of change. It allows for more experimentation for those interested, kind of those bit by the bug that I mentioned. It is inclusive. No foods are off limits, right? So if you wanted to track your macros and try and do it with protein shakes, Pop-Tarts, and candy bars, you could, right? You may not feel the best, but you should expect to lose weight doing that. And it emphasizes portion control over restriction of the fun foods. The cons, this is why I stopped using it with a lot of my more beginner clients. I kind of use full macros for the more advanced clients for this reason, right? This first con is a big one. It is a big lifestyle adjustment to start, right? I said earlier that people are often reactive with food. I'm hungry now. What's around, right? It is hard to do that when tracking macros and trying to hit your macros. If you want to hit your macros, you need to pre-plan. You need to plan ahead. I know I want to hit my macros tomorrow, right? And I know I'm going to eat 3 to 4 meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack. So what foods can I prepare, have on hand, have nearby so I can hit those macros appropriately, right? You got to set yourself up for success when you're tracking macros. It doesn't happen by weighing it. Trust me. To do it right, you've got to weigh stuff. Stuff has to actually go on a food scale, right? Or you have to eat stuff that is sold in units, right? Like the Greek yogurt cups, right? That come in like the prepackaged cups, right? Where you can scan and eat 1 unit, right? Or 1 protein bar, 1 oat bar, right? 1 banana, right? If you're doing that, right, then you don't have to weigh and measure, right? But if you're eating rice, right? If you're eating just chicken that's just cooked and out, right? You've got to weigh it in order for it to be accurate, right? If you're not weighing it and it's not accurate, you are wasting your time, right? This is not the appropriate diet for you. For that reason, right, because so much of the weighing is important, because the weighing is so important, this type of diet can be difficult to adhere to when traveling. But note, we said difficult, not impossible. Tony's video will give you strategies to be adherent while traveling. So summary, carbs and fats are less important. To be exact, with if weight loss is the only concern, there are performance benefits to being more precise with them. Carbs are the fuel for intense exercise, right? So if you want to exercise intensely, you want to really boost your progress in the gym, you're going to want to follow one of the diets that has you more closely measuring your carbs. There are 3 levels to carbs and fats. You want to choose the one that you can be most consistent with. And that is the end of this video. The other video is Anthony is going to talk about how to apply all the stuff I just talked about to your life, to social settings, meal prep, restaurant tips, how to track alcohol, how to include alcohol into your diet, right? So his stuff is much more applicable to your day-to-day life, right? So highly recommend watching that video as well. Thank you for your time. Adios.